Good morning, everyone. Today my partner Heather and I will be debating whether there should be a prerequisite for divorce. First, I would like to start off with a little story. Imagine this. 3 kids huddled together in the dark, and the only sound to be heard is the sound of their parents fighting from all the way downstairs. When they go to bed, their dad goes to bed in their parents' room, and their mom goes to sleep downstairs on the couch. A year later, their parents finally decide to get a divorce. Halfway through the year, the next thing they know, they're being picked up from school at 9 in the morning to be rushed home so they can pack a suitcase and go move into an apartment for 3 months because one of their parents won't move out and their other parent can't take it anymore. 5 years later, and still counting, their parents are still going through a divorce where they are forced to pick sides and deliver messages with no end in sight. Now, I don't know whether you think this is very realistic or not, but it may help if I tell you this was my, scratch that. This is my life. I huddled together in the dark with my brothers while we listened to my parents fight. My dad slept in his room while my mom slept on the couch. I left school at 9 in the morning, confused and not knowing what was going on, but then forced to pack a suitcase so I can go live in an apartment where I shared a room with my mom and my brother shared a room. My parents are still getting a divorce 5 years later while they have no contact at all, and I am forced to pick sides and deliver messages with no end in sight. Now, the reason my parents are getting a divorce was not because one of my parents was abusive or had a drug problem. No, it was because of irreconcilable differences. LegalDictionary.com defines irreconcilable differences as the usual basis for granting a divorce in no-fault divorce states. If one party says the marriage is irretrievable and refuses to reconcile, then such differences are proved to exist. Long definition short, they didn't love each other anymore and they couldn't agree on anything. But my parents got to stop fighting, but because neither of my parents is dangerous, they are forced to stay in a marriage they don't want to be in and in return affect their children in a negative way. This doesn't seem logical, does it? Of course not, but with a prerequisite, this is exactly what would have happened. The resolution we think is both impractical and undesirable is resolved that the U.S. federal government should enforce a prerequisite in order for divorce to be finalized. The LegalDictionary.com also defines a prerequisite as required or necessary as a prior condition. So a prerequisite for an irreconcilable differences divorce means that people who choose this as their reason for divorce have to go through a series of required procedures before they can get a divorce. So in addition to the already 5 years my parents have been going through a divorce, who knows how much longer it would take. My parents' divorce is not the only irreconcilable differences divorce, as you may have guessed. But did you guess that irreconcilable differences accounts for half of the divorces in America? That means that almost half of the people who get a divorce would have to go through a series of mandatory procedures before they can get a divorce and move forward with their lives. Now, there are a couple of different prerequisites the affirmative side could suggest, but no matter what, they would most likely include requiring parents of minor children to attend divorce education classes in person or online before they can file for divorce, strongly suggesting a 1-year cooling off period before a divorce can be final, and a time when spouses can send their mates an early notification and divorce prevention letter to warn them that divorce is imminent if problems are not addressed. And finally, it includes creating centers of excellence within universities or nonprofit organizations to develop the state's capacity to help couples at risk of divorce. So to sum it all up, we are looking at least a year and a half, most likely more time, so people can take classes and a year to cool off and write their spouse a letter saying they will move forward with the divorce if there is no change. Most people say the main focus in a divorce is the children and how to make sure they know it isn't their fault. But with all this time being spent on possibly being able to fix your relationship, the focus is completely taken away from them. When the parents are taking classes or cooling off, who is there for the children? Well, sometimes kids either have siblings or someone close they can talk to and rely on, but nobody truly knows how to talk to their own children better than their parents. Another reason a prerequisite is impractical and undesirable is money. Whether the parents have to spend money on classes or it is paid for by the state, it is a lose-lose situation. Either ordinary everyday families or individual states have to spend money they don't have to try to help people fix their relationships. As we have already noticed in another debate, the country is in over $15 trillion of debt, and the amount is still growing every second. With all this debt, who has enough money to spend trying to repair something that may be permanently broken? If states actually pay for these classes and centers, who is to say people will go through the process of a prerequisite? Do we really think we can make it mandatory for people to have to take at least a year to try to fix these problems? That is why a prerequisite will definitely not work. So, in conclusion, the resolution resolved that the U.S. federal government should enforce prerequisites in order for divorce to be finalized is both impractical and undesirable because of the amount of time and money that needs to be spent on trying to repair something that may be permanently broken. Additionally, the children will be affected in a negative way. Don't force what should be divorced. Thank you, and vote negative.